Hey guys, DJ Sam with us here. Welcome back to another video. In this video, we have the co-founder of Star Atlas, Michael Wagner. But before we get stuck into it, make sure you like this video, click that subscribe button, and turn that bell notification on. And enjoy. Okay, Michael, welcome to the podcast. I thought I would start off by doing something a little bit different than most podcasts, which is normally you would introduce yourself and do an intro, but I would take something off your shoulders and do it myself for you and have a crack at it and see how accurate I get. So you do a lot of podcasts, I would assume, and I've seen a lot of them out there. So I'm going to give it a crack to try and introduce Michael for him. So Michael Wagner is his full name. Now we're going to go way back in elementary school. He was selling candy to friends for profit. So that sort of shows you what sort of entrepreneurial bug that he had back in the early days. He was introduced into cryptocurrency in 2013 via script coin mining with GPUs. He then took that a step further and went for, in 2015, full-time into crypto. Now, a job prior to this, he was an analyst, a charter analyst, private wealth, and portfolio management. I'm not too sure on exactly what all that means. All I know, it's a very high-end financial stuff. And then also another thing to take note is, I believe it was called the Toast platform, but now it is called the multi-chain venture. It is stuff to do with legal cannabis industry within the US. They had about 60 team members, and a lot of them have actually come over to the Star Atlases, which what we're talking about today. And potentially in the future, those two businesses / companies could come together. So we'll have to wait and see how that all pans out over the months and years to come. Now, getting into Star Atlas with Michael here, it is built on Unreal Engine. If you don't know what that is, it is something called nanite technology, and to sum that up, it's just really damn good graphics. I'm not going to go into the technicals of it. I guess people just want to know, is it good graphics? It's damn good graphics. Michael Wagner is the Star Atlas co-founder and CEO. Pablo Corrego, I apologize if I butcher that, he is also a co-founder and COO. He was also previously a founder of Fuelexia Labs and Vanguard Scientific Systems, and then also a strategic growth advisor in Peru for gold and commodities. We also have Jacob Floyd, which he is the CTO, and Danny Floyd, which could be brothers, I'm gonna guess, just because of the last name here. He is also the co-founder and CPO. Danny worked on many previous games like Command and Conquer or EA Games, so on and so forth. So he does have some really good background there with the gaming industry. Star Atlas back in January had 4 team members, and now is grown all the way to 75. Michael could probably clear that up because it might be somewhat changed since the information that I've got there. They also did a private sale, which I couldn't find any funding details on. And then recently with Star Atlas, they worked with a Neil Armstrong NFT with SpaceX. So I found that all very intriguing. Michael, would that be a decent, okay intro, or was there some things missing or some things wrong there?
No, you've definitely done your research. That was a great intro. I don't tell too many people about the elementary school days, so I'm not sure which interview you dug that up on. But yes, that was my first experience with censorship, as my principal at the time confiscated my goods because I was not permitted to sell candy on the schoolyard. So great intro. I'm sure we can get into some of the other components that you discussed. But the only clarification I would make is that we have grown actually from 4 people to about 120 people that are working in some capacity on Star Atlas, and they aren't all internal team members, but these are people that have influenced the products that we've released to date and are working with us consistently.
Wow, that is some major growth. So guys, if you ever meet Michael, make sure you hold onto your candy really tight, because he will grab it off you and probably sell it back to you. No, I'm totally kidding.
All kinds of things.
Okay, so let's go straight down to the bottom of it. What is Star Atlas in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a difficult question to answer concisely, simply because it's multi-layered, it's multifaceted. But let's just start with the part that's probably most immediately absorbable by the community, and that is a AAA quality, massively multiplayer online game that is space themed. So space exploration, territory control, political conquest and domination are the primary gameplay pillars. When I say AAA, I'm talking about developing out a game to standards that we typically see in mainstream game development studios. And so what you're going to receive is full cinematic quality. That's, as a direct benefit of Unreal Engine. but effectively this cinematic quality gameplay experience with the best lore, the best mechanics, and the most well-balanced economy. We further enhance that through the integration of blockchain. So if I were to say that we have two primary focuses, it's first making sure that we have a really fun game to play that's attractive to a global audience. And then secondary to that is how do we transform the gaming industry into this new model of play to earn and also play to own. And we do that through the delivery of NFTs for all of the in-game assets and non-fungible tokens, everything you own in the game, from ships to crew members, components, land, building structures, effectively everything that you can, let's say, touch in the game or see in the game is probably owned by some other player or yourself. We also have two crypto native tokens, including Atlas and Polis, Atlas being the medium of exchange or effectively the in-game gold. And then Polis is our governance token, which has kind of a hierarchy of benefits throughout the entire ecosystem, both externally as well as for that political strategy component within the game. And then also the integration of various upcoming DeFi protocols. So things like lending pools, things like AMMs and LPs and pure staking and kind of residual yield generation off of wealth that's generated while playing the game. So all of these DeFi primitives that are coming to the forefront now, we will be integrating these into the game over time and providing those as features to the players. So the final piece that I would kind of mention which is far more experimental and exploratory, but very forward thinking, is this concept of the metaverse. And I'm sure we'll get into that on the discussion today, but that in a nutshell is what we're attempting to accomplish with Star Atlas.
Yeah, great answer. I do realize it's a very complex game. You guys are shooting absolutely for the stars, and because it's obviously new to a lot of people, you guys are at the forefront of the metaverse sort of gaming. So I'm actually personally really excited about Star Atlas. Now, you have we're going to break down the games and mini games and the main game. Basically, is there one mini game that's coming out very soon, and then you have a main game? So if we could just break down, there is a mini game, or is there multiple mini games, and then there's obviously a main game as well, is there?
Sure. Yeah, and let me maybe even take a step back from that, because a lot of people are asking about when is the game going to be out, and I've alluded to this in the past somewhat cryptically, but the game is already underway. Right. And I mean, we've been rolling out features and products as early as April this year. And that was really with the kickoff of our NFT marketplace. We were the first to deploy an NFT marketplace on Solana. And we developed that with a complete integration into Project Serum, which is the decentralized exchange protocol that lives on Solana. We developed that for the execution of our Rebirth Genesis of a Metaverse campaign. So really cool digital art collectible campaign. Each one of the art pieces was designed and created by our in-house concept artists. And we enhanced that with augmented reality on every single poster. We call these multimedia meta posters, augmented reality and audio soundscapes underlying each one of them as well. So we partnered with mainstream musicians like Blondish and Bassjackers, and we worked with Jason Silva, who's a well-known futurist, to produce voiceovers for each one of these tracks. And we also had Deadmau5 on our final poster. So some great musical collaborations, a collectible set, but also a set that would allow players to, in some way, get early access to the in-game assets, because purchasing a variety of these posters through a tier system would reward players with drops of these in-game assets. So that was really our first product. That was our debut, and that was the first opportunity that the community would have to engage with us, and the benefits of which are kind of carrying forward through today. One other point I would touch on there is that we believe in the perpetual utility and value of not only these in-game NFTs, but even things like collectibles. And so we had a lot of requests from the community for access to allocation through our token generation event, which was just recently executed across FTX, across Radium, and across Apollo. And what we did was introduce a ticketing system based on ownership of these posters, the meta posters. And so you were able to get either additional lottery tickets across Radium or guaranteed allocation in a specific pool on Apollo if you own the posters. So a lot of value was created there. Now, getting more into kind of the meat of when is the playable game universe coming about, very soon. So we just recently launched our galactic asset offering. So far, 9 ships have been released. These ships are the lead up to the first deployment of the minigame. And I guess I would also stress here that we are of the mindset that we are going to be releasing features iteratively over time and not holding back for, say, major completion of individual products. So with the minigame, the first feature to roll out is actually taking place next week on Tuesday, which is an enrollment process where you can view leaderboards, you can view your profile, you can select a faction. In the very near term, you'll be able to select and purchase names or handles in the game, as well as establish your guild, clan, or as we call them, decentralized autonomous corporations within the universe. So that's all coming up starting next week. That leads into ship missions. And by the way, I should clarify, the mini game is an in-browser version that represents many of the gameplay mechanics that Star Atlas will deliver over time in Unreal Engine, but just at an expedited pace. So our players will get to engage in gameplay, but also be able to start earning things like Atlas, Polis, components, and commodities within the game. And this is all in the initial gameplay is within 4 to 6 weeks. So that's with ship missions, where you can deploy a fleet of ships, complete missions, and earn based on the completion of those. We also have a multiplayer component to that, where you can actually pool your ships with other players and take on bigger missions and get better rewards. That leads into our land development modals, where you can either mine ore or you can start to farm for food. And then kind of the third component of the mini game is orbital space station crafting, if you will. You get to develop out platforms that are usable and complementary not only to your own land assets, but could also be accessible to other players for a fee. And then finally on the minigame, we're rolling out the namesake of Star Atlas, which is, well, it is Star Atlas. It is the map of the universe. And this will be an interactive 3-dimensional map with geographic coordinates of various assets and claims and things like this. So this whole process of the minigame is going to take us not only through the end of the year, but into early Q1 of 2022. And we would expect a relatively refined or polished version of this to be complete by the end of January next year.
Okay, so basically, I actually like your answer there, because basically what you're saying is the minigame actually already started in a small way earlier on, like in April, May, and then it's sort of like rolling out. But I guess when people think of a minigame, they automatically think, can I click on things and do things within a game perspective? But the outlook realistically would be that it's already sort of started, and as things get added on more and more, whether it's the naming, your name in the game, or whether it's anything else like with NFTs or the ship selling. These are all sort of steps towards the mini game. Personally, I guess that people think that the mini game would be as a click-based sort of thing on the web browser, and it's sort of as weeks go on and months go on, that you guys are just expanding that into a more visual game that they can actually play for the mini game.
That's right. And I mean, the reason why I emphasize, though, this activity that people can engage in right now is we are blurring the lines between digital worlds and digital reality and physical reality. Everything that we're doing and developing and producing within the digital realm has implications in the real world. And again, we can kind of touch more on what that actually means, as we discuss here. But the decisions that people made back in April to purchase a poster from us has direct implications on their ability to access and purchase and participate in the Galactic Asset offering, and also participate in the actual gameplay modals that will be released. So yes, from a purely technical standpoint, like actual video game mechanics, they're coming out starting in 4 to 6 weeks. But you have to really start to think about strategy, design, development, clan formation, guild formation, things like this that are already happening, right? And have been happening for some time. So if you're waiting for like the actual game to come out, you're already behind, is what I would say.
Yeah. Okay. That sort of makes sense to me. So by basically the end of Q1 2022, you'll have a lot of things in place, and the minigame's basically, in my eyes, already started. So if you guys are listening to this, sort of do your research, have a look, because as every step or week or day or month goes by, you are falling a little bit behind if you want to sort of be on top of it and know what the space is going on. Now, we do know, obviously, there's a main game coming out, and I can tell you this, and I feel sorry for you in a way, because everyone's like, give me a date, when's this? It is the blockchain, guys. It is crypto. There's no set dates. People have learned from the past that if you make dates, it's just impossible. If you don't hit it, then everyone's just sort of up in arms. So it's more of a generalization. The mini game is at Q1-ish at 2022 should be implementing, but has already basically started. And then the main game itself, are you looking at 2022 maybe at the end of the year? Is it more 2023? Obviously, no set dates, no pressure here, obviously, as well.
Yeah, I mean, so the full production is already underway. So we have a separate team. We have an engineering team that's working exclusively on the mini game and the NFT marketplace and kind of the interface that people are interacting with now. We also have a production team that's working in Unreal Engine. We released the video maybe 2 weeks ago. It was the Pierce X4 studio trailer. And that is an actual in-game Nanite-based asset that was developed in Unreal Engine, right? So that is like the quality and caliber of the assets that you'll see inside Star Atlas. That is ready for a rider to hop on and start piloting. So with that said, you know, developing out the full AAA quality is going to take many years, but yeah, we're approaching that the same way we're approaching the mini game, which is module or iterative-based release schedules. And so we actually are optimistic that we might have the first module in Unreal Engine released by the end of the year. Again, don't hold me to it. A lot is subject to change, and a lot of R&D is going into ensuring that we deliver the best experiences. But that first module would be relatively simple. It's a showroom module, but you'll actually download the game client. You'll enter into this 3D space. You'll be able to do things like ship configuration, where you can spec out your loadout, if you will. You can spec out your ship with different components and different crew members. You can purchase that ship. You can also interact with the NFT marketplace, and then you can deploy those ships on the same ship missions that people are participating in the minigame. One thing I want to point out here too, which is really cool about developing on blockchain, is that because that is the underlying data structure, and we're trying to build as much of the game logic on chain as possible, actions that take place across various environments. And this could be a mobile game if we develop it, the web-based game, or in Unreal Engine will synchronize. And so if somebody's in the web app game and they purchase land and they deploy a mining station, that will actually realize and synchronize with what happens in Unreal as well. So a single unified backend environment built on blockchain.
Gotcha. I guess the next question that a lot of the community want to know is, before we get into ships and land and the professions or roles and so on and so forth, is a little bit confusion. I like to dumb things down for people just so they can understand exactly what's going on. So people want to know, like, they're a little bit confused. You know, is it on Ethereum? Is it on Solana? What is Serum? There's obviously Polus, and then there's Atlas for the governance token. So how can we just dumb this right down to say, what is the governance token? What is basically used in game, and what is it built on or currently built on?
Right. So we're building on the Solana blockchain. We selected them as very early partners, if you will, as our layer 1 protocol of choice. So as our core protocol that we're building on top of. It has extremely high transaction throughput. It's a web scalable network. It has sub-second finality, so low latency, low lag for players, and very low transaction costs. And an added benefit, not to get too deep into the weeds on this, but a lot of caveat, Solana is not a proof of stake network, but it has some of the same functionality. It's actually a proof of history combined with parallel data synchronization on transactions. But proof of stake networks often sacrifice security or decentralization in order to increase efficiency and transaction throughput. In Solana's case, there's over 650 validator nodes around the world right now. So we kind of have the best of every world, if you will, in operating on Solana. And the more interest there is, and the more people that dedicate compute resources to running validators, the more scalable the network gets. And we're thinking not in terms of tens of thousands or millions, but potentially billions of users over time that are participating in the Star Atlas metaverse. And so it was super critical for us to operate on and with a very highly scalable network. And we believe that that's the case with Solana. Now, Serum is a decentralized exchange protocol that lives on Solana. So, it's essentially the underlying tool that we use to enable the marketplace on our platform, so play.staratlas.com, all of the transactions that you're making, whether it's directly from us or with us rather as the design studio, or on a peer-to-peer basis, are taking place on this central limit order book. Right. Beyond that, Atlas and Polis. Atlas is the medium of exchange. It's the transactional currency, maybe most comparable to like an in-game gold across any other MMO, with the difference being that it is a crypto native asset. And so naturally, the owner of this has the ability to transcend the metaverse, the digital universe, and transact across a variety of different protocols and convert that into things like USDC, for example, and actually cash out. So this is where play to earn comes from. Atlas is used for everything from, well, it is the financial incentive mechanism in the game. So people are earning Atlas for various activities, but it's also the denomination of cost. And so think of operating any asset in Star Atlas as operating a business. If you have mining equipment has maintenance costs and operating costs. And if you're purchasing consumables or repairing your ship or refueling your ship or paying land value tax, these are all denominated in Atlas. And so it will require the player to hold Atlas to be able to pay for these. Polis is a pure governance token. And as I said, there's actually a hierarchy of DAOs, both externally and internally. Now, outside of the metaverse, if you will, Polis is responsible for long-term development decision-making across the evolution of Star Atlas itself. And so that would include things like feature releases, asset release schedules, and other economic decision-making related to the game, including things like the emission rate or reward rate for players over time, or the taxation rate of players over time. Now, the way we've designed the economics, and I would point people to the game economics and tokenomic white paper that we released on August 17th, is that all of the financial activity, the GDP, if you will, economic activity within the metaverse actually flows directly into the DAO. And so all of the expenses that players incur in Atlas flow directly into the DAO externally, and then the DAO gets to decide, does that get reinvested back into growing the user base? Does that get paid to Star Atlas Studio to continue to develop the game? Does it get distributed to stakeholders, or does it get burnt, right? Or any of a myriad of other options that they would have. This is purely driven by Polis holders that are staking to the DAO and influencing governance long-term.
Gotcha, wow.
One final point here, I know this is a long answer, but one final point is that within the game, there is a political strategy component. There's 3 different factions across the game. And so there is a faction DAO for each faction. And then there's a regional DAO that controls smaller regions of space like solar systems. And then there are also going to be clan DAOs, or decentralized autonomous corporation DAOs, that control guild treasuries and decisions.
Wow.
We've really put a lot of thought into the underlying economics and governance structure of this.
Wow, that is insane. Like, you all have your own DAOs, but I'm actually mind blown that you guys have gone. This game is so complex, but once it's out, it'll all make sense like a normal game. Like, you'll be able to play it. But you guys have gone in so much depth. It's insane. So basically, I'm going to sum this up. There's no Ethereum transaction on there. It is built on Solana, which, by the way, I love, because I found about them last year in like June at 90 cents. And the team behind it, working with IBM and stuff like that, they're phenomenal team from Solana. Will you need, just a couple of follow-up questions, will you need Solana to make the transaction or anything? Or is it purely Atlas is the token in the game that you will earn, which is probably inflationary, and then Polis is a governance token where Polis is basically you get to make the decisions if you want to be part of it when you're staking as well?
Yeah, so you will need a little bit of Solana currently to make transactions across the Solana network. Yep. I wouldn't be surprised. I should point out here, Solana, Serum, both of those products are still in beta. We're still in pre-alpha, so we're working through some bumps in the road as we continue to develop and release here. And everybody that's participating at this stage is essentially a beta tester for what the bigger vision is, but you will need a little bit of Solana. I would not be surprised though if there's a feature in the future where you can pay a fee in the underlying token that you hold, right? So in the future, you could probably automatically convert Atlas to Solana to pay the fee to the network. So that's not in place now. So you do need a little bit of Solana in your wallet. And then also a lot of our initial ship sales and interactions with our marketplace are all in USDC. So you would need an SPL base, that's Solana Programming Library, kind of equivalent to the ERC20 on Ethereum. You would need USDC, that is an SPL token for the Solana network.
Gotcha. Great. Now, we're going to get stuck into the juicy stuff that everyone wants to know about ships and land and all that sort of stuff. So we've gone through all of the tokenomics of it, which I think are absolutely phenomenal. Looking really, really good from my eyes, and I believe that is your forte on your background. Now, here comes a lot of words out of my mouth. It's going to be an absolute mouthful. We got roles and professions. So get ready for this, guys. The professions are, and probably not limited to, the following: transport, rescue, freight, repair, construction, refueling, miner, salvage, entrepreneur, CEO, broker, bounty hunter, pirate, smuggler, data runner, commander, general, mercenary, and scientist. Now, if you think that's it, we have another subsection, which is individual station roles, which is pilot, engineer, repair, scanner, science, gunner, mercenary, rescue, power manager, janitor, cargo, foreman, hangar foreman, salvage operator, science officer, military commander, military general, private, sergeant, rookie, smuggle, cargo foreman, and captain. Now, that is a lot to take in at first. I'm sure it will all make sense once we start playing the game in the future, but could you break this down for us, roles and professions and the station roles?
Yeah, I mean,
not each one. God, oh, geez, we'll be here for years. But like, yeah, literally. More so, Jace. Basically, if you get a profession, is there only one? Can you change? What does it mean in general? And what's the station roles? Just the simplicity of all forms.
Yeah, and let me just take a moment here to, you touched on them, but the various co-founders. So Danny Floyd, Chief Product Officer. He's really the visionary behind the underlying game concept, right? You just touched on it. My specialty is really in financial integration and game economics and tokenomics and the integration of decentralized assets into the broader concept. Jacob Floyd, Chief Technology Officer, his team's building out the mini game as well as the NFT marketplace right now. And then Pablo Quiroga is our Chief Revenue Officer, and he's leading up things like marketing, comms, business development, and partnership relationships. So just to touch on that quickly, the careers that you're describing in the game, this is really much more of Danny's wheelhouse. He is like essentially creating the game from the ground up. I have an understanding of all of them, but the general concept here is that we're building a true economy. And the idea is to build a true self-sustaining economy over time. And so, of course, naturally, people should have a variety of career paths or specializations that they can take within the game. And so where we see this playing out probably most fluidly is through the DACs, so decentralized autonomous corporations, and with guilds, and through using treasury management in a DAC structure. And so you might require people to perform certain functions for you. I also want to just go on a quick tangent here and say that the metaverse itself is probably going to lead to the greatest job economy that the world has ever seen, because even people that don't actually own an asset in Star Atlas would be able to be employed by somebody who does, right? And we have a lot of capital that's looking to flow into asset ownership with no actual intention of engaging in gameplay. Now, these are not flippers. These are people that actually want to earn some type of return off of owning these assets, but they don't have the time or capacity to play. And so they can hire somebody from anywhere in the world to perform that function. And what it's going to require is a coordinated effort across a variety of career paths to be able to execute the most efficiently. We're creating a real business environment, right? That's kind of the idea. And so all of those, all of the career paths that were described not only cater to maybe an individual's play style, whatever their preferred play style is, but it also caters to forming businesses and being industrious and being entrepreneurs within the game. I would actually say also that those are only the careers that we've defined. Just this week in Discord, maybe it was this morning, the time flies by, it's all kind of a blur at this point, but just this morning, somebody was offering consulting services for DAOs related to Star Atlas. Now, this is completely external from the game mechanics that we introduce, but his or her business model is to advise people on how best to structure their plans, how best to strategize around asset ownership, and create the most profitable entity within Star Atlas universe. And this is not an endorsement of that person. I don't know if they're capable whatsoever, but can you imagine? I mean, this is like people now that are advising on how to structure assets within Star Atlas, and they're not even in the metaverse. They're not even in the game. And so, the implications of this are broad and wide. The second set of professions that you listed off, those are related to crew members within a ship. I'll kind of leave it at that as a summary.
Okay, so for the profession side of thing, obviously it's like transport, rescue, so on and so forth, entrepreneur. Are these, can you only pick one, or this has not been determined yet? Is this what your character will be? Is this from the character's point of view?
It is from the character's point of view. The current thinking is that it is avatar or character based, right? Mm-hmm. So you kind of have your core character that you enter the game with, and that is your centered viewpoint. You're not limited to a single profession. It's a skill tree leveling system, and so you'll earn experience points, XP, depending on whatever activity or function you're engaged in. So if that's certain entrepreneurial activity, then you increase your level across.
Oh, I understand. So basically, I put it in terms of RuneScape might be a bad example because it's too old school. But if you have a stat of you have all these stats available, and whatever you want to hone in on, you can focus in on transport or entrepreneur. You can level up in that area of expertise and be more of that could be more of your professional trait on what you can do. But you can do all of them if you have the time and I guess finances as well.
100%. That's it.
Oh, love that. Okay.
Just how you spend your time is where you level up those attributes, and
yep.
You can always change later or focus on multiple, or you can specialize.
Gotcha. Wow. Okay, that makes sense to me. So you're not just limited, which is really, really cool. So with the individual station roles, is this the same thing again, where you can level these up same sort of ways to professions?
Yes, but that will be more. We're kind of thinking of crew as crew slots. So you'll have a captain of your ship, which can be you, or it can be another member that you purchase as an NFT and outfit your ship with. And as you complete missions with that crew card, that crew member will then level up as well, right? So all of your crew members across an asset like a ship or a space station would level up based on activities you direct them to complete.
Gotcha. Because we're just about to get into ships where it gets very, very interesting. There is one thing I'm personally a little bit confused on. So I know you, when we play the main game or the mini game or whatever it may be, you have a ship, whether it's small, large, massive. I'm trying to get the understanding of, okay, so if I have a ship, am I driving it and then I have NPCs with me that are helping me, or do I have to have guild members with me? Who's driving? Who's doing what? If you could clear that part up for me so I can understand if I wanted to travel somewhere, I needed at least another person with X amount of XP of like a pilot to drive it, or is it an NPC or a real player?
It's a great question. And the idea is that you can pilot a ship solo. You can outfit it with your own crew members. You don't need other people to play with you, but that becomes an option. So you can replace a crew part slot with another player or another clan member if you would like to do so. So multiple players can fly on a single ship, or you can pilot the ship yourself. But taking that a step further, you can actually pilot an entire fleet as well. You can manage a fleet yourself. So it becomes almost top-down view RTS style if you want to manage, a full inventory of, 10 ships or 5 ships or even 2 ships. You can pilot all of those at once with the crew members that you have that are really just AI NPCs.
Gotcha. And do you hire them or you pay them so they can fly with you?
That's do we have to pay each one of the crew members?
Yeah, like, so would I go to a marketplace and be like, I go to like a shop somewhere in the game and be like, hey, I need 3 pilots, I need a gunner or whatever it may be. I'm going on a mission with 4 or 5 ships. I'll hire them and then you pay a fee so they can come with you, or they just grab it wherever?
Those will be assets that you own as well. And so every ship is going to become, you won't see this yet, and it might roll out at some point during the mini game, but effectively, you will purchase each one of the crew members to, place as an inventory item to place within your ship. Lost my train of thought there, but you will purchase them. There will be assets that you own. And sorry, that's what I was going to say, is each one of the ships will come with a default configuration. So you'll have crew members to start. And then it's entirely up to the player to determine if they want to replace a specific role on the ship that maybe provides some type of enhanced specialization, whether it's attack or defense or neutral or mining or, whatever the profession may be.
Gotcha. So it's like basically, if you buy the ship, it comes with an AI, a normal sort of generic one. If you guys want to basically buy a more impressive AI or a pilot or something like that, you can upgrade the AIs or get better ones to make your ship better attack, better defense, or whatever it may be.
Exactly.
Gotcha. That cleared that up. Wow, that's really cool. I love that. Now, the most what everyone's been talking about is the ships. We're going to get stuck into them, obviously, because it's the main thing that's up for sale right now. Obviously, this game is you're massively early if you are listening to this podcast. And so let's get into the ships. The breakdown. How many ships will there be? Will there be more minted as the games grows? Now that you've had a recent sale, which first of all, I want to say congratulations on. Now, from what I've read on the internet, you guys have 120 ships over the next 3 to 4 months, basically to the end of the year. 120 ships over the next X amount of time. I actually don't know this, but I know a third of them will be coming out before the end of December, give or take. It is blockchain, guys. So a third of them would be 40 ships. So you would have 40 ships coming out between, obviously some have already been out to now in December. Now, I saw on the website where you guys can buy it, there is a marketplace you can buy these ships from at the moment, and they're coming out periodically. So it's not like all of them are on the marketplace. They are coming out whether it's a couple of days or a week or so. There is a number on there that says how many ships are available. Is that the total amount of ships, or are you looking at it as a standpoint like, okay, supply and demand? If we have millions of people coming in, we need to print a few more ships to sort of make do, or is there a limited supply?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I love that you asked it. So the original thinking was that we launched these as generational assets, which is to say that the wave that we released over the last week and the upcoming waves would just be the first generation of each one of these ships, and then at some point in the future, we would launch an additional generation that would be comparable from an attribute standpoint, but maybe cosmetically look a little different. Plus, it would be denoted as being not the original, right? It's kind of a second generation. Our current thinking on it, though, given that we do already have concept art and conceptualization behind 120 ships, we're essentially ready to roll these out, but we are rolling them out strategically and periodically, is that there's a good chance, most likely right now, we never issue any of the original ships ever again, right? So the ships that we sold last week, there were 9 of them. Those will never be sold by us ever again, because by the time we get through the remaining 111 ships, I can tell you we'll probably have another 120 in the pipeline. What this does is gives some certainty around the total supply of each of the ships that we've issued, but it also creates a market for players who are using the mining gameplay loop, which is when you own land, you can extract ore that can be refined, and those become inputs in the supply chain, and people can ultimately use blueprints to craft ships in the future. And that means that players can potentially craft these ships, but it will require that they own productive land and follow the formula to create the ship again. So you might see these ships again in the future, just not from us, right? Other players will be creating them, and that will be supply and demand driven. So somebody might decide to manufacture more Visus Opods because those went really quickly, right? And maybe they're in high demand, but we won't be issuing them again. Most likely, right?
So just to sum that up, basically the number on the website is how many ships there will be. Potentially people will be able to make them in the future with blueprints. So if you have got one of the first generations one, there is the number there that shows you how many there will be, because they have a substantial amount of ships you have guys coming out anyway. Would that be an accurate answer for that?
That's accurate. The number that you see on the marketplace now, that is essentially the total supply that's going to be issued by us. Now, over time, we are analyzing the growth in the user base. And so my expectation is that we're going to have to work on the rarity like denotation on each of these, because it's very likely that later models, we end up selling more simply because we know that we need to accommodate a larger user base, right? And so again, the former thinking was that we were going to issue additional generations as necessary with the growth in the user base, but now we've moved away from that. And so probably going to be higher supply of each asset as we roll out, simply because more and more players are joining the game. And we want to make sure people can get access to these at our MSRP, or maximum suggested retail price, at least when we first launch them. And then whatever happens on secondary markets, we have zero involvement in it at that point.
Gotcha. I understand. So basically, it's good, guys, if you already know about Star Atlas, you're buying ships that are on probably a low end of numbers compared to something that'll be in the future, because they have a supply and demand when more and more people get into the game. I see you can get skins for your ship. Can you personalize your ship, or is it just the skins you can put over them at this stage?
We have a number of cool skins that are out right now. Many of them were exclusives to the Rebirth campaign that were dropped. We just did the exclusives with FTX with 3 different designs for the Opal Jet. And then we also had the Radium skin. So in the near term, it's just going to be skins that you can purchase. Longer term, though, fully anticipate custom created skins that people can craft and either put on their ship or even sell to other players. And I don't have a definitive timeline for that. But user created content, we believe, is part of the metaverse, is the big potential of user created content. So fully expect people to be able to create their own skins, decals, customizations, and sell those to other players at some point in the distant future.
Gotcha. I assume people are going to love that. Insurance on your ship. Basically, I've seen this word thrown around. I guess I know that you can lose your ship in the thing, which we'll go into very shortly in the space area. But insurance on a ship, you can insure your ship. Obviously, this comes to when the gameplay comes out. Just a little small breakdown on how the insurance works, so that way people don't get too scared. They're like, oh, I go out, I go travel, I lose it, I lose a bunch of money. So just the breakdown of insurance.
Yeah. Just to be clear, the insurance product is not something we're developing, but one of the benefits of operating on blockchain and decentralized ecosystems is that there are many other developers out there around the world creating products that would be relatively easy for us to integrate into the game. So obviously we need to review these protocols, ensure that the code is safe, and ensure that the function or feature that our players are interacting with is beneficial to them or safe for them. But following that review, insurance would protect players from really the deep space region. So I'm sure it sounds like we'll get into this next, but the majority of Star Atlas, a big chunk of Star Atlas, is safe. You'll either be in a neutral zone where there's no PvP, a medium risk zone where there is some PvP but non-permanent, and then there's the deep space, right? And deep space is accompanied by very high risk, very high reward, but permanent death, hardcore mode where NFTs actually get burned. And in those instances, if you decide you want to venture out there, it would probably be prudent to insure your item. Otherwise, you put the entire asset kind of at stake if you lose.
Gotcha. Okay. You sort of touched on this already before, but like, what are the benefits of buying multiple ships? The way I look at it from previously was, if you have multiple ships, you can get more attack, more defense, and all this sort of things. So you've got because you can command a whole fleet. You're not just piloting one. You can obviously have AIs that you can pilot all together. So I guess to use it, like, more ships you have, obviously more options you can do, obviously with attack and defense. But is there anything more to that other than having one ship compared to, say, 10?
It's right. I mean, it's more the simple fact that you can take on bigger missions and better missions, and you're more powerful if you're navigating around in deep space, right? More resources generally is going to make you more powerful. So we're working on a delicate balance between the sizes of ships, the classes of ships, and ensuring that pay to win is not really a dynamic within the game. But a lot of balancing is going to need to take place to kind of realize that.
Would there be certain missions for certain ships that you have to do it as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So Danny's already scoped out, probably like 20 different mission types that people can participate in. And yes, it will be dependent upon the class of ship and specialization of your underlying ship.
The in-depth of this is so good. Now, getting on to traveling costs, because in my mind, the way I picture it from what I've seen is basically, I don't know if there's a limited amount of stars or planets, or there's an unlimited amount, obviously. But if I'm going from one place to another, and I'm traveling, what would the cost be to go from a planet to a planet? Obviously, further out, you'll need, I know there's fuel stations along the way that people can actually own. But is there a generalized cost to travel from planet to planet, or basically just flying around?
Not defined yet. So going into the game with ship missions, it will depend on how many ships you have. Each ship is going to have a fuel consumption rate. And you'll have to ensure that your ship is, well, you won't have to insure, but you can actually fail a mission if you run out of fuel mid-flight, right? So you'll want to refuel your ships. The cost is going to be commensurate to the reward that you can get from that particular mission. So what we do is balance your potential earnings against a kind of a pre-specified expense rate, a ratio, if you will.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. I see in the trailer, I watched it multiple times. I loved the blue girl at the start, or alien. It looked a little bit like Avatar, so it got me really, really excited. The graphics are insane. They did mention something about a diamond. Is there one diamond? Is there multiple diamonds? What is this diamond? Is it just a play on words? What is this thing?
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that diamond was the exact right word to use. It's in the lore of the game. This is actually the discovery of Iris, which was the first poster that we launched back on April 24th, actually. So if you want some more information on Iris, what it actually is, you can read the background and lore on the discovery of Iris poster. But in essence, this is in the deep space region, center of the universe, where all the factions are surrounding. It is a region of space with the densest and rarest minerals and materials, of which are all the highest value naturally. And so that's kind of
gotcha.
The core lore of the game is that everybody's battling over this hyper dense, resource rich area of space. So
it's not specifically a diamond, it's basically just the rich resources.
That's right. That's right.
That's pretty cool. I get what you guys were. I thought it was a bit of a play on words and I was unsure, so I thought I'd just clear that up for the audience.
Well, part of the reason why, at the time it wasn't discovered, right? So they didn't really know what it was, but diamond, I think, is the most relatable to people in modern era.
Yes, I like it. Now, factions and whatnot, the quickest breakdown possible. We are coming to the last 15 minutes of this, and I do have to get into land and some esports sort of things. So there is factions. So if you could break down, is there like basically teams? Is there certain races you play? Yeah, anything to do with the factions?
Just think of factions as economic regions. Typically, people that operate under a faction are all working towards the same goal of continuing to grow, expand the borders, take more territory, and generate more wealth within a faction. And there's Oni, there's Ooster, and there's Mod, which is essentially an alien, a cyborg race and human races. But everybody can play any character or race or avatar that they want. They just select a faction as their economic zone.
Gotcha. So there's how many factions are there in total right now, and will that be obviously the only amount in the future?
There's 3 factions. We don't.
3 factions.
Yeah, anticipate changing that. Excuse me.
That's okay. So basically, I'll look at it like World of Warcraft. You either have Horde or Alliance, something like that would make sense in like another game that you could sort of relate to.
Yeah, what's cool about the triangulation of factions is that it introduces kind of this rock, paper, scissors dynamic, right? So each one has its advantages and disadvantages, and depending on how that plays out, no individual faction should ever have a dominant advantage over the other 2. They always have a weak point from one of the others, right?
So would there's open space or all of Star Atlas. Would you say that you can basically control the territory? So basically, can a faction if I look at it in World of Warcraft, if anyone's ever played that or a game, you can basically take over that land and then that's your faction, and then someone can steal it if they work together, like in a PvP style sort of thing?
Where land can be taken over is in deep space. So every faction has a neutral zone, like a safe spot for new players. It has a medium risk zone where some PvP takes place, but it's not permanent death. But where you can actually expand the borders and where it's more malleable is out in deep space. There will even be pirates, players that are pirates out there that really don't claim any faction. Their sole purpose is to hunt out and identify pilots who are flying around maybe solo or that are weaker than them. And all they care about is destroying their ships and capturing some of the value off of those ships. And again, that is permanent hardcore mode gameplay.
Okay, so basically if I start, say, when I first start the game, obviously this is very early, guys, but say I start the game, everyone has their home base of the 3 factions. That's where you'll start. It's the safest zone possible. And then if you go further out into, basically from there, you'll go into a medium zone, which is a little bit more risky. And then if you go into the deep space where pirates can be basically and steal any of your stuff, or like you can fight war there, and you can also claim territories if you guys work together as a faction. Would that be an accurate answer?
That's great. Yeah. And so the rewards are, once again, are all commensurate with the risk. And we like to use Fibonacci a lot in our programming. And so it's kind of a 1-3-8 scale. And so 1 is neutral, 3x is medium risk, and 8x is out in the high risk.
Gotcha. Now, this sort of brings me into organization guilds. Then we'll get into planets and lands, esports, and then the final thoughts. So organizations and guilds. Now, I know YGG is absolutely everywhere, and I'm so happy for them. They're absolutely killing it. Explain to me in the game, will you create a guild in the game? Will it be organizations in the game? Will it be outside? How will the organization and guilds work? And obviously, would they have to be on the same faction as well?
It will need to be in the same faction. Guilds will need to operate in the same faction. It's not inconceivable for guilds to operate sub-DACs, if you will. So they actually, will have separate user registration or DAC registration across the factions. But yes, if you want to operate collaboratively and collectively, you need to be in the same faction. We think that guilds are going to be extremely powerful economic entities across the game. We have a great relationship with YGG, and an announcement coming out with them, a follow-up announcement coming out soon. But yeah, we think that the best way to manage resources and kind of develop strength is probably to be operating within a guild. Although it opens up a lot of doors for things like espionage and other forms of spying on different factions by having sub-clans across each one of the faction zones.
Okay, so would the guild or / organization be built within the game? Like you'll all wear the same banner or something, or like there'll be a bank vault that you guys share together, or something like that?
Yeah, again, to your point, this is all very early, so this is kind of conceptual, but we're looking at integrating a DAO framework throughout the game. And so the idea is that we can empower individual groups of players through a DAO to do things like manage resources, manage the treasury, and also manage requirements or activity responsibilities, if you will. So it might be that somebody works from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on a mining rig, and then they clock out, and they have another guild member that clocks in and starts working that mining equipment again, right?
Okay.
That's kind of the general thesis for clan operation and asset operation across the universe.
Gotcha. And that brings us into planets and land. Now, the first question that the community wants to know is, how many planets are there?
It's infinite. I mean, infinite. Yeah. So we'll be kind of tightly managing the size of the universe initially. Again, scaling to the user base. We want to make sure that there's actual activity taking place in all of these regions. What makes it kind of difficult for us is that by design, the economics are finite in nature. So all of the amount of Atlas that's getting distributed over time, the amount of resources that can be mined, that can be used to craft new NFTs, things like this, they're all finite and carefully managed. And so at inception, we're not going to create this procedurally generated universe, which is a term that's essentially used to describe borderless game environment, right?
Okay, so basically, you'll monitor the planets. If there's no point having planets if there's no one there. Like you'll just scale it back. But if there's more demand and need more planets, you guys will basically expand. And obviously, when it comes to decentralization down the line, then it would be like some sort of proposal if they needed more or less.
Yeah, we have quite a few thoughts on this, and I don't want to speak too far ahead because a lot can change. But I'll say there's one other like pretty cool concept that we have. If you've ever played any of the survival games, you know how they have, I'm forgetting the term, but essentially the amount of space that people can play in decreases over time. We're actually thinking about this mechanic where, sure, you can expand the borders, but if there's not enough, say, economic activity in that region, or there's not enough battling in that region, then it can actually be destroyed over time as well. And I'm totally blanking on the term for this, but regardless, we have to. This is many years probably down the line when we figure out the full procedurally generated universe. In the short term, it's finite amount of land, finite amount of productive resources, and the economic incentives are related to the quantity of supply that exists.
Gotcha. That makes sense to me. Now, planets and land. So the way I'm picturing it from an outside perspective, there's planets everywhere. You're buying plots of lands on the planets itself is, just to go over, there is a limited supply of land per planet. And then on top of that, following question is, can you buy a planet, which would be obviously astronomical, but if you could break that down for the community.
You know, I don't want to reveal too much here, Sam, because we're actually working on a new model for land possession. So the idea is that we can actually be more proletarian in land ownership, if you will, which is more of access to production rights versus true ownership. Although within central space stations for vendors, merchants, player habitats, penthouses, condos, things like that, there will be real land ownership. But again, you know, some of this is still in formation, and we're not looking at land releases for, well, it's the second release after ship missions. So I would expect later in the year we'll provide more info on this.
Sure. It's a little bit secret there, guys, which is understandable. The amount of information that's coming out already is insane. So it's way too early. But land is coming with planets. More information in the future. Now, esports. Do you have plans? Again, this is super early, and I do apologize for these questions, but people just are so excited about the game. Is there any plans for tournaments? How would they all work? Or LAN games? Just a sum up for the esports sort of thing.
Yes, we're looking. We've already given presentations to certain collegiate esports teams, as well as like development teams and economic teams at colleges. We think that esports in college playing Star Atlas is going to be big. Certainly looking at things like battle arenas where people can commit their assets to an arena and participate in PvP, as well as some other models that we could introduce. But beyond that, you know, let me just, I want to maybe tease. Maybe I don't want to tease, but
I love it. Well, you're gonna like my last question then.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. We'll just cut it off there. That's good. We'll
okay. Well, the question is pretty much when it comes to the final thoughts and that. But is there any? I know that. Is there any alpha you want to leak or tease or anything like that? And then we'll get into your final closing thoughts, if you're allowed, or I'm sure it's entirely up to you.
No, you know, I think we do try to be very transparent with the public, and it's not that we're holding information back ever, with the exception of we want to make sure it's fully refined from our side before we drop it. So, yeah, I guess the only thing I would mention is the pilots licenses. There have been a lot of questions about that. So captains and pilots licenses, those are typically going to be something that are earned or purchased through gameplay. For all of the people that have purchased ships during the Galactic Asset offering, those are going to be character-bound items that we deliver when we roll those out. So you won't need to go out and purchase a pilot's license or a captain's license to start playing immediately.
Gotcha. Look, I just want to say, first of all, thank you. I love what you guys are doing personally. I know the community is hella excited about this game, and it's ridiculously early. I cannot wait for when this mini game comes out, and then on top of that, you guys have the main game. I know you guys are working really hard behind closed doors. I know you're doing multiple podcasts, and you're answering the same questions for people. So I do thank you for that. I'll put all the information down below for anything to do with Star Atlas related. Obviously, your Twitter as well. I believe it's staratlas.com. And then what is your Twitter handle? It's
@StarAtlas. My Twitter handle is @ and then @_M Wagner.
Yeah, gotcha. So guys, make sure you go follow him. Make sure you go follow the game. Guys, make sure you get in early. It's not financial advice, but you can see that the ships are up for sale, and they will be probably more scarce than the future ships that come out, that although they could have blueprints in the future to make them, but they're still going to be very, very, well, I personally think valuable. Thank you so much for coming on. You're doing an amazing job. Yeah, is any final closing thoughts for any of the community out there?
No, great questions. Really appreciate you having me on, and you know, we love our community. It's growing so rapidly. There, you know, a lot of people are looking for information. So Sam, thanks so much for giving us the opportunity to share our internal thinking. We care very much about making sure people have a good, positive experience with us. We are all working, you know, 18-hour days. And definitely trying to deliver these products as quickly as possible to people. But yeah, just thank you again for the opportunity to share our thoughts with everyone.
Thank you so much, Michael. Everyone, that's Michael Wagner.